Have you ever talked to an old person and realized that something that you've always had all of your life just wasn't present in their childhood? It could be things such as television, a car, or internet connection for the youngest of us. For me, I had this great discussion with my grandmother, and she told me that actually, when she was young, they didn't used to have hot water, so she was always taking cold showers. And that was like a blast to my mind because I've always had hot showers. And I cannot possibly know what it's like to not have this. I mean, obviously, there were some times where the hot water was not working, but it was really a small moment in my life, and I knew it would be fixed. But just to know that this is the norm to not have hot shower is something that I've never felt. So this made me realize how ungrateful I was for my hot showers because I never take the time to appreciate it. It's just something normal for me. And actually, the next time I took a shower after this discussion, I was very pleased by it, and I just thought, wow, it's such a good experience and something that my grandmother didn't have when she was young. So I really appreciated it more. The thing is that after this shower, the next one, and then the next one, they were just the same. I stopped thinking about it and I just got back to my routine of having normal showers without even being grateful about it. But at least this story made me think about gratitude and about how we can improve it. So I tried to look online for advices, and I saw that there were basically two camps on how to live a satisfied life. Basically, there is the camp that says, well, just get a better life because your life is miserable, so you should just go to the gym or start a business and just like improve your life so that you're satisfied with a great life. There is another camp which takes the opposite direction, which is to say, no, anyway, you're just going to be striving for more with this first approach. So, what you really need is to be okay with what you already have and to try to philosophize this and actually acknowledge that you already have what you need and you don't need more to be happy. So my opinion on this duality between the two camps is that I don't think you should choose one or the other. It really depends on the situation. Like, let's imagine that you have a very miserable life with, I don't know, you don't own anything, you just live in a shitty apartment and all you do is play video games alone in your room, then I think you should definitely improve your life and not try to be satisfied by it. But at some point, if you like already have a lot and you already gathered wealth and have a happy marriage and things like this, maybe it's time to try to reflect on these things and just appreciate it for what they are. So that being said, I really don't want to focus on the first part of it, which is to improve your life. I think there are a lot of great videos about it. I really want to focus about the second part, which is on how to acknowledge what you already have and just be conscious of how great it is, because our primate brains just aren't able to do this. Basically, in evolutionary psychology, we don't have any interest on being satisfied with what we have. A saying says that a contented ape just stopped working and stopped striving for more, so he eventually died. So it's actually difficult for us to do this trick, but with a bit of work, and I think that there are techniques that can help us improve ourselves. So I'm going to share what I think is valuable. And I'm also talking about appreciating what you already achieved, like getting a high requirement diploma or having this dream car. No, I'm talking about very basic, fundamental things like the hot shower that I was talking about. Just to put a bit of perspective into that, so an example of that came to me when I was talking to this Russian girl at the beginning of COVID, and she said that she didn't understand why everybody were freaking out because when she was young, she was living in USSR, and shortage of food were actually quite common in USSR. So it's just something that she already saw. And for me, it was striking because I remember that during COVID, at least the beginning of COVID, not seeing some food on the shelves were a very unique experience, something that I never thought was possible. I always thought that if I had enough money, I could basically buy anything I want, and there was no shortage of anything. Anything was unlimited, the only limit was how much money you had. But during COVID, this was not the case. I think this highlights perfectly how we get accustomed to things that we've always had, and not having the things at some point is just making us freak out instead of the opposite, which would be to be grateful for what we've always had. But almost nobody, at least nobody who didn't think about it enough, is acting like this. To give a political example, I think this is why it's so hard to put ecological measures, because you're going to take away something that a lot of people have always had. For example, a lot of people have always been able to fly for cheap prices to the other end of the world, or people always have had cheap steaks and they've been eating steaks maybe every day. And when climate change activists want to say actually we should reduce on the planes and we should reduce on the meat eating, these people are saying no, this is absolutely no way, it's been like this my entire life, so I'm not going to change it, because it's so hard for them to change something that was there all along. And I'm not blaming them, this is just human nature. So enough of the diagnosis, and let's actually dive into what we could do. What are the solutions? So maybe the easiest quick solution is, first of all, to just acknowledge what you've always had, and that these are something that are actually very circumstantial in history and in geography. So for example, the hot shower discussion that I had with my grandmother, this made me realize. But as I said in the beginning, this didn't last for long, and actually I still have hot showers and I still don't realize how it's cool to have hot showers. So you're thinking, yeah, but it's maybe because you just acknowledge it one time, and maybe you should do this all the time. And I think this is actually quite a good solution. You can have a diary and you saying all of your day, well, I'm thankful for this. And a lot of self-help gurus have mentioned this method of just noting all of the things that you are grateful for. And I think it's a great method. Actually, in religion, for example, in Judaism, that is my religion, we actually do a blessing before every food we eat. Not only this, but especially because eating is something that you're doing several times a day, and blessing before the food is actually a sign of acknowledgement that the food that you have could just not be there. And it's so great that you're able to have food in your plate very easily. So even if you're not religious, I think it could still be good to acknowledge the food you eat or anything, the fact of having a roof above your head or not being in war. All these things is great to acknowledge. So there is the diary technique, which is an afterward acknowledgement, but you can also do it before. Maybe when you wake up, you just being grateful for all of the things that you have, and this makes you in a good mood for going about your day. So all this is very nice, but this is not what I was looking for. I was looking for something more radical, something that could really make me feel it and not just philosophize it and be in the world of the theory. So to explain my solution, let me tell you a story that happened to me a few years ago. So I was living in Berlin in a very small studio, and one day my shower broke. Yes, it's again about showers. I don't know why so many philosophical insights just happen with showers. I just couldn't take showers without having the shower overflow and water all around my bathroom and actually all around the living room, because it's just a studio. So it was very annoying, and this lasted for days, and it was making me scared of actually taking a shower because I knew I would actually overflow all of the apartments. So I tried different solutions, it didn't work until one day, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days later, some magical product just happened to work, and I really do remember testing it afterward and seeing the water actually flow correctly in the shower. And that was such a great experience. I was just contemplating it for a minute because I just didn't have it for 3 days, and it made me very frustrated. So I was looking at this water flowing and just contemplating it and savoring the moment, and I realized, whoa, this is actually the first time that I'm happy about just the water flowing normally. what is wrong with me. But actually the question was more what is right with me, because for the first time I was acknowledged that having a functioning shower is something very nice to have, and we never realized it, or at least I didn't realize it until I had it to broke. So what do we do with this? Are we going to just break everything so we can realize that they are actually valuable? Obviously, we're not going to do this. But what we can do is to remove temporarily the things we have, and the moment we will have it back, we will be very joyful about it because we will know what is the pain of lacking it. So I know this might be something a bit hard to do because, as I said in the beginning, it's very hard for people, for example, to get down on meat or fly less often. But I really think that just removing some specific bits of technology in our life, or just things that make life easier, is really going to help us acknowledge them in their full way. To show you how good this is, maybe just remember when you were a child, you probably didn't have something that your friends did, and this made you very frustrated. And maybe at some point you actually got the thing, maybe because your friend lended it to you, or maybe because your parents actually seized and gave it to you. But when you just got this thing, this object, what did you feel? You probably felt very excited and very joyful, and you probably felt much more joyful than if you just had it straightforward. So what are we going to do? What are we going to cut off, and how are we going to do this? So for me, the solution is quite easy because, as I said, I'm religious and I'm observing the Shabbos. And in Shabbos, you actually cannot drive, you cannot touch electricity, you cannot work, you cannot cook, you cannot do a lot of things. And this has a lot of good benefits. But one of them that we actually don't speak a lot is the fact that when you go back to normal on Saturday night, when you actually turn on the lights and when you turn on, I don't know, your phone, the TV, the car, it's great to see that you're able to have all of these things that you were not able to have before. And I'm not suggesting that everybody who practices Shabbat is realizing this, but if you give it the thought before, the philosophizing before and after, when you will observe the Shabbos, and when you will go out of it on Saturday night, you will really appreciate it because you just didn't have it for 25 hours. For example, I remember that the first time that I practiced the Shabbos, it was also in Berlin. A lot of things happened in this city. I was living on the 4th floor and I had an elevator and I was just using it every day of the week. And then the first time I just didn't use it was for Shabbos because you cannot use electricity. So I had to work up 4 floors with the stairs, which is not something horrible, but the next day when I was able to take the elevator, I was like, wow, this is actually great. I'm able to not walk, and I didn't realize it until I didn't have it. So I'm not going to try to convince you to be religious. This is not and will never be my goal. But if you're interested in this method, I suggest you try to watch some dopamine detox. Maybe you've already heard about this practice. And I think that this practice is actually a way to rewire your brain and to not be so addicted, which is good. I'm not saying it's bad. But I think that something nobody talks about, or I didn't hear at least, is the fact that it's removing the technology and it's make you able to acknowledge it more. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you think there was any flaw in my argumentation, or if some things could be improved, or if you have any other methods for acknowledging what you've always had. Thanks again, and see you next time.